Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to Top Education's presentation today on TDOS syndrome, which we will explain in detail. Few housekeeping matters. If you are joining us and you can hear us, you should be looking at a screen right now that does say TDOS syndrome. If not, then please check your connections. Also, we will be recording this and placing it on our Webinars on Demand page for privileged members. So if for any reason you wanted to review the information that was presented today, please feel free to view it on demand. The webinar will go on and questions will be answered at the end. And to do so, we're going to ask you to go to the bottom of your control panel. There is a question box. Please make sure you type in the question and hit the word send. And then we will take the questions in the order that they are received. So without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Dr. Joshua Dunsky. He's a 1998 graduate of Life College. He has an extensive amount of background on areas such as what he is speaking on today, and I will leave him to talk about himself in a little bit more detail. But we would like to welcome all of you, and especially Dr. Dunsky. And at this point, I will turn the floor over to you, Dr. Dunsky. Take it away.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mark, and thank you for allowing me to be here and to speak to all of you today. A little background on me. I have a clinic outside of Boston and Framingham, and I primarily treat discogenic injuries, spinal degeneration, neuropathy. I also help set up practices, and my other passion is what we're doing today. I love to lecture. I love to educate. I actually fly around the country internationally, and I talk to people about the power that they actually do have, the control that they do have in terms of their health. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's see here. So the TDOS syndrome, to me, I think we live in a world where, at least our country for that matter, I believe we have the best doctors. I believe we have the best research scientists. We have the best drugs to keep us alive in crisis care. We have the best chiropractors. We have some of the greatest practitioners in the world, yet we're one of the sickest countries in the world. So how is that possible? And this got me thinking years ago, there's got to be something else going on. We are in the biggest health crisis ever known in our time, ever known to us. And in fact, it is declining at a rapid rate. Our children right now, it's the first time our children are expected not to outlive us because of what's going on. So why are we so sick? Why are we one of the most obese countries in the world? Mexico took our title a few years ago. We're number 2. So we have the brains, we have the money, but why are we the sickest? And I believe it has to do with this syndrome we're going to talk about today called TDOS: toxicity, deficiency, obesity, and stress. Cancer's on the rise, obesity, diabetes, all of these things, Alzheimer's. In fact, back a few years ago in 2008, we had 1 in 4 children had a chronic illness. 1 in 4. Today, it's 1 in 2. 1 in 2 of our beautiful kids are born with or acquire a chronic illness. That's not okay. And this is why I love to travel and talk about this, because people need to know what's really going on out there and the control that they do have, and of course, some of the control we don't. But this hit close to home. Lisa and I had our 4th and 5th kids, Jackson and Josie, in 2012, and we were one of those statistics. And I know many of you that are probably watching this, it's either hit you close to home or you know someone with a child with a chronic illness, excuse me. These pictures are a little graphic, but they prove a point, and I really want people to understand this, that it can happen to anybody. Our Jackson and Josie were born 3 months early. Completely took us out of the game. We never expected this to happen to us. No one expects it to happen to them. And our little Jax was just underdeveloped. So he wasn't sick, but he was premature by 3 months. Josie, on the other hand, acquired necrotizing enterocolitis a month after she was born. And when I tell you for 4.5 months, the majority of that time, it was literally a day-to-day thing. We didn't know if she was going to make it to the next sunrise. And it was a very scary time. We lived in the NICU for 4.5 months. It was brutal. It was brutal. Thankfully, she pulled through, and that's her today. She's 6 years old, and we were lucky. We were really lucky. The amazing nurses and doctors at Brigham and Children's, they pulled her through, and her body pulled her through with their help. But we were fortunate. Many people are not fortunate. So why is this happening? Why is childhood cancer on the rise too? The American Cancer Society will tell you one out of two Americans over 55 is probably going to have, or they're over 50% likely to have um, cancer, develop cancer. Alzheimer's, people are being diagnosed every 66 seconds. I'm going to fly through this. I hope you don't mind, just because we have a lot to cover in a short period of time. These are the stats right here. 42% of Americans will be obese by 2030. 100 million will have diabetes by 2050. Many of you are practitioners, or I think all of you on this webinar, you see this in your clinic every day, every day. And I want you to see this because this is really telling. This is the Medicare's guidelines, a treatment plan that seeks to prevent disease, promote health, and prolong and enhance the quality of life, or therapy that is performed to maintain or prevent deterioration of a chronic condition is deemed not medically necessary. And I show this to some patients because they don't understand why their insurance isn't going to pay for all the things that we do that can support their body to get better, the things that you do to support your patients' bodies to thrive, remove the subluxation, the interference. And there's other things that you can do that are supportive to that, like nutrition, like laser therapy, like decompression, like some of the other beautiful therapies that you do in your clinic. So why are we getting sicker and sicker? Well, I already alluded to it. I believed it's a four-pronged approach, just like a stool has four legs: toxicity, deficiency, obesity, and stress, or being overweight and stress. Now you can say, well, I'm not overweight, Josh. And I would say, that's great. That's awesome. But I can guarantee you you're toxic. I can guarantee you're deficient, and stress is everywhere. Okay. So let's talk about this. Let's get into the toxicity and deficiency a little bit. Since World War II, there have been over 100,000 new industrial chemicals put into our air, food, water. They touch our skin, and only less than 500 have ever been tested on humans. So what about the other thousands of those toxins that we don't even know about? We know to make the average food that's boxed up for average lunches and dinners, and where you can buy prepackaged products, has over 10,000, or an average of 10,000 chemicals that are used to produce that food. Mount Sinai School of Medicine has identified 167 deadly toxins. 167 deadly toxins stored in our body for the average person. I'm pretty sure one of those deadly toxins is not good for us. And I've seen studies that show 8 to 900 of those deadly toxins. So, you got to think we're in a world, and I'm not saying to you here, I'm not saying you can run away from this completely. It's not about that. It's about living healthier, and that we know you can do, that we can prove. I do blood in my clinic. I do urine in my clinic. We do toxicity testing. We do oats testing. Excuse me. We can see people physiologically doing better, and we can run the neuro tests and the orthopedic tests. We can prove people are getting better too. But there's things that have to happen. The body was designed, and I tell you, the subluxation, paramount. Removing the subluxation, paramount. But my belief system is, and this is my belief, that the body still needs certain fuel for the cells to work properly, fuel for the nervous system, fuel for the immune system, even by removing the subluxation. So to me, nutrition, there's no exception. It's hand in hand. We need the nutrition. This is a study done by the Red Cross. It was published on CNN. They took these beautiful baby girls and baby boys at birth. They studied their cord blood and tissue at birth to find out what was the toxicity level at birth. And this is what they found. Each and every single one of them had over 287 industrial chemicals found in our beautiful children, okay, including 180 that we know cause cancer. So do you think that God had a higher plan when this woman had a woman that has had a miscarriage? Or do you think God had a higher plan when this baby unfortunately didn't make it to term? This baby was born with mental retardation or Asperger's or autism or cancer. It doesn't matter. Of course, we can believe that. And maybe some of that's there. I'm not taking that away. But I find it hard to believe that out of 287 industrial chemicals put into our children, that some of those had something to do with that. A chemical is a chemical, right? It changes things. And we have this innate intelligence to be healthy and to heal. Altering that can't be good for us. Our drinking water, I'm not going to spend time on here. I'm pretty sure we don't need birth control, Prozac, steroids, statins in our in our water. We just don't, along with those other 500 impurities that make us sick. Food. We know food is more than the fats, carbs, and proteins. What is food really? Food has genetic coding that tells my body, it tells Josh's body, it tells your body how to function properly. It's a computer programmer putting a program into a computer to yield an outcome. Okay, so what happens if the computer programmer comes to work drunk one day? He's intoxicated. Do you think the program he's intending to get is going to be what his task was, or is it going to be the outcome he wanted? No, it's not. And so we look back and we want to find out, why is this happening? Okay, and we look back to the late 1990s and we looked at these allergies. We looked at the peanut allergy and all these other food allergies, which I can tell you, they didn't exist when I was a kid. Very rare to have someone. I remember one overweight kid and one person with allergies when I was going through elementary school. But look at this. During this time frame, there was a 265% increase in emergency room visits for food allergies. During this time frame, it spiked. Why would it spike at this time? And by the way, that spike in ER visits was not from hysterical parents. That ER spike was from pediatricians saying, Mrs. Jones, get your kid to the ER, right? Food allergies, what are they? Your body sees something as foreign. It sees these foreign proteins and launches an inflammatory response about it. That's the body's natural response. That's health expressing itself. But why was this happening at an alarming rate? Was there something now in our foods that wasn't there before? Of course there was. This is the beginning of these amazing scientists and researchers that design these new proteins to inject into our food to yield more crops and keep the pests away. I don't need to go deep into this. You all know what I'm talking about. Genetically modified food was said over in overseas in Europe, Japan, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, 27 European countries said, we're not going to do that stuff over here because no studies have been proven that it's safe for humans. There's been no human trials done. The United States took a different stance and said, well, no human trials have proven that it's unsafe and we're going to roll with it. So they did. And our meat got more hardy and bigger, more crop. The cows got bigger, the cotton, the corn was protected from the insecticide. Wasn't good for us and it wasn't good for our kids. In fact, corn became regulated at one point by the EPA as an insecticide. They designed this amazing protein that could emit its own insecticide from the corn, not just killing the insects from something that was injected into it. They changed the DNA structure so the expression of the corn became different. And this was our food. We're eating food that's not really food. So when people say, oh, genetically modified food, GMO, it doesn't have an effect. That's just hogwash. It's not true. In my belief, it's not true based on science. You can genetically modify the genes that tell my genes how to function. I'm going to function differently. And this is what happened in the beginning of the 90s as well. One of the top 8 foods that on the allergen table is milk, according to CNN and Wall Street Journal, amongst other things. They injected and they designed a new hormone to elevate hormone levels in the cows to yield more milk, make the meat more hardy and more plentiful. And those, the hormones were making the cows sick because the cows weren't eating grass anymore. They were eating corn as well. The cows got sick. They needed to be pumped full of antibiotics. You know that whole story. But these hormones were directly linked, not in theory. We could show this directly linked to raising other hormone levels that caused prostate, colon, and breast cancer at alarming rates. But yet it was still allowed with no clinical trials, no human trials proving that this was safe in our country. Other countries said, no, thank you at that point. And speaking of breast cancer, so I lecture a lot at internal medicine conferences. I was just over in Vancouver and Miami before that. I speak at breast cancer conferences, just over in Amsterdam and London at these. And I will tell you, breast cancer it's getting worse. Now it's 1 in 8 women. When is this going to stop? The interesting thing about breast cancer is that 10% is genetic. 10% of breast cancer is genetic. What does that mean? 90% is what? 90% is environmental. Do we have control over environment? We do have some control. I'm not saying you can't breathe in those hydrocarbons from the bus that just drove by you, but there are things that you can do to clean your body. We spend so much money cleaning our cars and cleaning our vacuum and making sure our house is clean, but we don't protect the most valuable asset to us, and that's our own health. You look at the rates of cancer in the world. We have the highest rates of cancer in the world Europe is close to us right now. These industrial cities and countries now are getting close to us. The highest rate during this time too, when these GMOs were introduced, the highest rate of GI disorders, reflux, diabetes was on the rise during these times too. We were getting sicker and sicker. Today, metabolic syndrome is where 75% of our healthcare dollars go. 75% of our healthcare dollars goes to metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome, in my opinion, is curable by the body, right? These are things like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, type 2 at least, um, fatty liver disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, polycystic ovarian, all of these things, right? Metabolic syndrome is what most of your probably your patient base has, right? This study was done. They studied these children. Here's the thing: children are not meant to have fatty livers at age 15 years old, 13 years old, right? That's what's happening. They autopsied these livers from accidents and found there was 17% of these kids had fatty livers already. That's lifestyle, my friends, lifestyle for the most part. Now, yes, can you have a disease that causes a system to go haywire in the body? Of course. I'm not talking about those rare occasions or genetic issues necessarily. I'm talking about the majority that are environmentally caused. It's crazy. You know, you look at this poor kid over here. This slide makes me sad every time I see it. This kid probably already has type 2, probably already has hypertension. 23 million children in our country are obese. That is what's not okay. It's not okay with me. I know it's not okay with you, whether you have kids or not. And this is what we do. I will get in front of 5 teachers or parents, or I'll get in front of 5,000 of them. I did a lecture in front of 350 firefighters recently. I talk to large organizations, small organizations. I don't care if it's one-on-one. We have to empower people. There are things that they can do. And this is what I do in my clinic. And many of you do this in your clinic. But it's not okay just to let this happen. People have to make a change. And look at this. You know, it's kind of funny, this slide, but it's true. We've destroyed our world. You look at, you know, McDonald's, great business model, very, very bad for our kids. Very bad for our kids. Is obesity a choice? Do you think it's Linda's fault for sitting on the couch and she's 200 pounds overweight, eating Doritos and not going to the gym enough? Well, my opinion is this. I'm not taking responsibility away from her, but is it her fault? Okay. So the question I have to you is, what's the difference between crack cocaine, heroin, hallucinogenic drugs, and chemicals in our food that make us see, hear, taste things that might be different, right? So those chemicals make us taste something that heightens our taste, our sensory reception. It's tricking us. Chemicals are chemicals. So if you have chemicals in the food that make you addicted, what's the difference between a drug that makes you addicted or a drug that makes you sense things differently? Nothing. It's the same thing. If you believe it's Linda's fault, then you have to be able to explain why we also have an epidemic of obese 6-month-olds getting worse. Because you can't tell me little Johnny at 6 months old is sitting on the couch eating Doritos and he's not going to his Pure Bar class. There's something else. It's the chemicals that are making us sicker and sicker and sicker. In 1982, the American Heart, American Medical, U.S. Department of Agriculture said it's the fat that's killing us. Fat, 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 fat. They mandated a 10% reduction in fat. Guess what happened when they did that? We all got healthier, right? No, we actually all got sicker. Metabolic disease not only stayed the same, it got worse. Excuse me, it got worse. It went through the roof. Why? Because it was never the fat. The fat's not the problem. You want to talk about trans fats, that type of fat? That's a different story. You want to talk about hydrogenated oils that destroy our blood vessels, right? That's a different story. The sugar is one of the main culprits. And I want to stop here for a second. There's so much misinformation out there about sugar and protein. Let's talk about sugar for a second. And everybody's an expert. I will tell you, I'm not an expert. Do I like to read and research things and study things? Absolutely. I'm not an expert. Your personal trainer, even though he thinks is an expert, your doctor is not an expert. These are people we learn things to become. Now, maybe you are. Maybe you got your degree in sugar, and if you did, then that's great. But what I can tell you is there's good sugar, there's bad sugar, and there's too much sugar. Your brain needs sugar every 3 hours or will die in the form of glucose. There's sugar in vegetables and fruits. We need that. Okay? I'm talking about the bad sugar and way too much sugar. That is what is damaging. I can't spend time on these slides, but look at this is what our kids and your patients are consuming. You know, little Johnny comes in, his mother's giving him, he drinks his orange juice every day. When he's sick, you know, why is he getting sicker? Because look at the sugar. Now, if you eat an orange in its entirety with the right fiber and the way Mother Nature delivered it, all packaged up, that's different. It doesn't cause the spikes because of the fiber and the other processing that a glass of orange juice would. It's very different. So I'm not saying orange juice is bad from an orange. I'm saying it can be very bad in a glass. And again, that's a different topic, and maybe we can do a webinar on that stuff. But I want you to understand that the food that people think are eating, some of those fruit juices, these parents show me these labels from these boxes and it says all natural, right? And they think they're doing a good job, and I don't blame them. It's the marketing companies that really should be restrained. But free enterprise, free business. That's where we're at right now. Our food is different. I see patients on a regular basis. I know you do too. They eat organic food. They get adjusted. They're exercising all day long. But doc, why am I getting sicker and sicker? Because, Mrs. Jones, the food is not what the food used to be in 1930. It's not what it used to be in 1850, and it certainly is not what it used to be way before then. The nutritional content, I don't care if you're eating organic, which I recommend, we can prove today organic food has no more nutrition than inorganic food. What it does have is less pesticides and less herbicides. So yes, I endorse organic when you can, but don't be fooled there either, because organic food doesn't mean the absence of those things. And what you'll see later on in our discussion, there's a percentage of organic food that has herbicides and pesticides. We need 54 bowls of spinach today to give us 1 week supply of iron. Back in 1954, I believe this study, or 1948, it started at UCLA. They found 1 bowl of spinach gave us a week supply of iron. The study ended in 2012 and it was 48 bowls, and now it's 54 bowls. When my grandmother was alive, back in when she was born, when she was a kid in 1936, for a young adult, 1 orange gave us a week supply of beautiful nutrition for an orange. Today we need 8 to equal 1 orange. You get my point. 6 to 12 apples today just to equate to 1 apple back in the day. Can we get our nutrition from our food? No, we can't. I have organic farmers that'll tell you all day long, they try. It is very difficult to get the nutrition into the food because it's just not in the soil anymore, because of the breakdown, because of the herbicides, the pesticides. Excuse me for going a little fast, but I want to make sure we have time for me to show you some science. So the point is, I know you want it to be there. I do too. It's not. And we can measure that. So one of the keys in the program here is I keyed some of these slides. This guy is very important. I want to show you a picture of a macrophage. This guy is our Pac-Man, and why am I showing you this? Because this is what's inside your immune system to fight cancer. Macrophages, one of the jobs they have is to eat cancer cells or mutating cells. And they actually have a sonar. They drive around your body. They have a sonar that identifies a mutating cell. They send out a message, okay, kind of like the same signaling that dolphins use and whales use, the sonar, if you will. And they identify these mutating cells, and they say, cell, you better change back to a proper cell or I'm going to eat you. The cell doesn't change back. The macrophage comes up and eats cancer cells. It also eats damaged cells too, and cells that aren't doing their job. Okay, guess what? Guess what fuels these macrophages? Enzymes. And guess what makes these enzymes? Trace minerals. For everybody on this call, one of the key components to a program that we use in here, and you may be using as well, the body doesn't just need the beautiful minerals like zinc and iron. We need trace minerals, okay, molybdenum and beryllium, and trace amounts of other beautiful trace minerals. We need 50 to 72 of these trace minerals every single day, not once a week. Some of the best supplements you can find at Whole Foods have maybe 15 of these trace minerals. We need 50 to 72 of these trace minerals every single day to make the enzymes to fuel the macrophage. What we're seeing today is people are so deficient, and they're eating the food, they're eating regular food. These macrophages not only are not sending out that signal, they can't see these mutating cancerous cells, and they Pac-Man all the way right by these damaged cells and these mutating cells, and they don't even see them. So they're not eating them. Cancers are at an all-time high. We're expecting this macrophage to be fueled, but we're not putting the fuel in the body for it. It's just like asking our troops to go overseas and protect our country and fight in a war, and we give them guns with no weapons. We give them boots with no soles. We give them tanks with no fuel in the tank. These macrophages are deficient, and they're not working properly. And that's one of the reasons why I believe cancer is on the rise. Of course, there's some other causes, The nutrition is essential. The nerve impulse, axoplasmic flow, it's called on the nerve. The flow of the electrical impulse that runs our nervous system is dependent on enzymes. These enzymes are made by these trace minerals. They're not there, right? We're lacking in these trace minerals. And this is where it is. Our diets are failing us. People are looking to lose weight. Forget about getting healthy, just to lose weight. And there's real reasons why weight loss programs don't work, most of them. According to the NIH, 98% of them fail. So stress. Are we stressed? Of course we are. And when we're stressed, we have kids, we have jobs, we have monetary stresses. And by the way, Stanford University says that the #1 cause of death today is not heart disease, not cancer. It's actually stress. But you won't find it on any death certificate, right? Stress increases cortisol, slows down fat burning, decreases bone density, decreases all the beautiful hormones that are needed to be healthy, decreases our immune system. It's a very stressful world. So we are toxic, we are deficient, we are stressed. And even if you see someone of normal weight, because I think the statistic is today 40% of normal weight people. So 40% of the people that you see, oh, wow, he doesn't need to lose weight or she looks great, have metabolic disease. You can't see it. You can't see it sitting in front of you. We need to change the way we think. If we don't change the way we think, nothing's going to change. That's really what it comes down to. So you can put, or that's people's obligation. My job today, my job when I lecture, is not to convince people. It's not to persuade people. It's not to sell people. It's to empower them and say, listen, if you are doing well, if you believe you are the healthiest you could be, great. Keep doing what you're doing. Use the systems that you're using. Use the products you're using. Continue with the lifestyle. But if you don't believe you are, because I thought I was, and I wasn't looking for a program necessarily. I had good nutrition, nutraceuticals. I believe there's a few companies out there that do really good work, and I use a few companies. But I believe I have to supplement. I don't believe I can get my nutrition from my food, and we can actually prove that through the testing that we do. So it's about just educating. Diets don't work. It's a $50 billion industry with a 98% failure rate because what they're focused on, most of them, is counting calories. There's no such thing in a calorie. Now I'm going to make some people angry. I'm just going to preface that. I always do. I did a CEU course for the nurses at Boston Children's Hospital, and man, did I piss some of them off in the beginning. But you know what? They weren't all engaged at the end because they said what I brought to them makes sense. The body can't count calories. There's no calories in a donut. There's no calories in pizza. There's no calories in cake. The only place you can count calories is in a lab. Now, how about instead of counting calories that the body can't do, how about we make every calorie count and have a nutritionally dense calorie versus trying to eat healthy? If I'm going to eat that spinach, but we know it's deficient, it's a nutrient depleted calorie. It's still good to eat the spinach. We still need to eat healthy food. That's not what I'm saying. But we're not getting all of the nutrition in that spinach. Diets are cutting calories. They're cutting already caloric restricted calories. They're putting us into more of a deprivation. That is bad, bad, bad. So Mrs. Jones can lose a lot of weight. And you see her 3 months later and she looks fantastic. But look at her 6 months later and 9 months later. She's not only gained all that fat back, but she's gained more back. Why? Because it's based on counting calories, which is actually very bad for the body, instead of making every calorie count and infusing nutrition every single day instead of depriving the body. Most programs deprive the body. There's a phrase called autointoxication. Autointoxication. And autointoxication happens where the body gets so polluted, it can't filter anymore. That's what happens. If you take a sponge and you fill it, infuse as much water as it possibly can get, okay? Try to put any more liquid in that or any more water in it. You can't. Then you have what's called spillage, and the liver spills. So your filters are clogged up. You go to get your oil filter cleaned and your oil change, and the gentleman takes your oil filter out. He says, Dr. Dunsky, do you want me to replace your oil filter? And he holds it up, and I see it dripping with gunk. You'd be crazy not to spend 25, 35, whatever it is, bucks to put a new filter in, because all that junk is going to recirculate through the blood into the brain, into the beautiful organ system, to your immune system. It's going to contaminate you again. We change our vacuum bags. We change our air handler in our house and our filters in our house. We don't do what needs to be done to change our filters in our body. And I'm not talking about a colon cleanse, not talking about a liver cleanse. There's some good ones out there, no question. I'm talking about a full molecular reboot, a nutritional cleansing system that's anabolic. That's key. Anabolic, not catabolic. I'm talking about a system based on science, not on theory, and not on starving the body. That one of the programs we use in here, which I've been using now for 7 years, is phenomenal. And some of you are using different programs from different companies and they work, and that's great. Continue using what you're using, but don't go with blind faith anymore. I was very disheartened and saddened to find out some of the companies that I used to use they have big names and their boxes look great and they look green or organic, and I call up and I have people that actually ask the difficult questions. Where do you source your ingredients from? How do you source them? Are you using chemicals like hexane to pull oils out of the plants and whatnot? If they are, it's not good for my body, but they say it is. So there's a level of integrity, and I'm not saying all companies do that, but the majority do. And if you don't believe me, call up and ask them. The ones that are transparent, I'll work with. The ones that are not, there's a reason they're not. So if you're using a company, that's great, but use nutrition that allows the body to get clean. We get rid of the garbage and infuse with the good stuff. Here's your typical difference. Dieting works on calories. What happens is we know the fat cells contain the toxins. Toxins live in the fat. Just by dieting, we can prove your body does not get rid of the fat. It does not get rid of the toxins. So even though Mrs. Jones lost a lot of weight first couple of months or 6 months, the toxins are still there. And then the body sends out an alarm system to the liver, make more fat because I still have these toxins. They're going to recirculate in the blood, and this patient's going to get, my body's going to get sicker. That's what rebound happens. Their body's making more fat versus a real nutritional cleansing system will go after the toxins and not the fat. That's the difference. The program that we use here, and some of you are using, a real metabolic cleansing system, not a colon cleanse, not a liver cleanse necessarily. It's a cleansing system that works on your brain, your liver, your kidney, your elbow, your toe, or your bladder. It gets your cells healthier, allows your body to be healthy. It's just food, ladies and gentlemen. It's food that has specific nutrition that Mother Nature intended us to have. Now, here's another key point. This is very key. So I want everybody to hopefully pay attention to this right here. I hear doctors talking about detox all the time. And there's some good detoxes that our doctors are using, that you're using. That's great. But they don't talk about the 3 phases. And they have a program that they think works based on, and instead of looking at the science. So the 3 phases you want to make sure you look at is, number 1, the first phase in detox is used by enzymes. It's that P450 cytochrome enzyme phase that we all know about. Trace minerals are key. Most of us are deficient in these trace minerals. So if we're deficient in the trace minerals, how is my phase 1 going to work properly? And this is the biggest example, the greatest example is you drink a glass of wine, your body has the capability to activate that cleansing system from the enzymes that are produced from these trace minerals. Selenium, I could talk hours about selenium, and basically what it comes down to, it's a turbo boost for your body to allow, it's like a catalyst to allow these other beautiful trace minerals to work. But these trace minerals make the enzymes to detoxify that alcohol and get rid of it. Boom, that's the body working properly. Okay, alcohol dehydrogenase. Phase 2, 60% of phase 2 of detoxification happens with glutathione conjugation. How does this happen? Your body has the capability to do this, but you gotta be consuming the food. Our body just can't do this without the fuel. Your car will never get you to New York without a full tank of gas. It just won't happen, right? So we must have these things, and the type of amino acid profile that you're consuming has everything to do with the synthesis of good protein. If you have a poor amino acid profile, or it's been heated up and damaged at high temperatures, excuse me, it's not going to work properly. So we've got to have the presence of cysteine, glutamine, glycine in order to make glutathione. One of the most powerful substances for your immune system is glutathione. One of the most powerful, we call it a toxin hunter. It sinks its hook in these dangerous, deadly toxins and breaks them down for the removal from your body, right? Because if they're not broken down, they're stored in our body and we can't get rid of them. Very important. So denatured protein, which is 99% of the protein we get from the States, is heated at high temperatures. It's in most of the diet programs. If you look at most of the shakes out there, they'll say whey protein, or some will call it denatured protein. It's denatured. They use high temperatures, salts, and acids to break down, to kill, right, the viruses and bacteria. But what they're also doing is denaturing the nutritional value. Basically, it renders that amino acid profile non-functional. So you're telling me I need amino acids, a good profile, in order to grab the protein, to get it into my cells and yield an anabolic state where I'm building muscle. But if I'm destroying the amino acids, how's that happening? Well, it's mostly not. You're exactly right. Maybe you use 20 to 30%. Maybe. I mean, you'll find different numbers depending on what research you're looking at. What we know is it's significantly decreased. It decreases the likelihood of that good protein being utilized in the body because we need a catalyst. And that's what happens is it's burned off and you get these amino acids that are rendered virtually useless. Okay, not 100%, but virtually. So when you're using a system, if you're using protein with your patients, you want an undenatured source. The source we use comes from New Zealand cows. They're fed grass, no hormones, steroids, antibiotics. Some of you are using that stuff too. There's a couple companies where you can get it from. Mine's not the only good one. I'm not here to sell you on my company, but I do my research and I do ask these questions. And as long as you're empowered and you ask these questions and you're satisfied, I would say continue using the company you're with, as long as they have science behind it too, and not coattail science. We can talk about that too if we have time. So glutathione, it's used up at a rapid rate. Everybody needs a good protein source every day, a meal replacement shake or an added protein source every day, especially the elderly. We know at ages between 25 and 70, sarcopenia is real. We start to have muscle wasting, and you can offset sarcopenia by a good assimilated protein drink every day. Phase 2, again, I'm not going to spend too much time, but that's the L-methionine pathway, sulfation, methylation, all those things also are working to detox. You need the nutrition to activate that. Your body needs good nutrition for that. That's when the toxins are generalized. If they're water soluble, the body can get rid of it. If they're fat soluble toxins, the glutathione sinks their hook into the toxin and pulls it out of the body. Now, number 3, phase 3, here is a key difference. Our program that we use can support phase 3. It's cell transport. We eliminate toxins through the cells themselves using fulvic acid, not folic acid, fulvic, F-U-L-V-I-C acid pathway. Fulvic acid pathway is where the nutrients are picked up in the blood. They're pushed through the cell membrane into the cell. So it's like a dump truck dumping the nutrients into the cell, right? But before that fulvic pathway leaves, before the elements leave, it's like a sponge. Think of a sponge. It soaks up the toxins, and the sponge comes back through the cell membrane and dumps the toxins back into the blood, and now they're excreted by the lymph in the body. That's phase 3 in detox, and there's not too many programs that do that or that we can see or measure, right? So again, why am I so passionate? Because I do feel like the programs that we use are a little different. And there's some programs out there that do the same thing. So make sure you're using that. Here's a study. Here's a published MRI. And this is why we work with so many practitioners that use similar. Here's a study. You can see the visceral fat around our organs. We all know what visceral fat does. It is bad, bad, bad. Congestive heart failure, fatty liver disease, strokes, all of the bad things, metabolic disease. We don't want visceral fat, okay? A little love handle fat, that's fine. We know it supports healthy hormone levels. The program that we use is a 30-day nutritional infusion system, basically, nutritional cleansing system. When I say cleansing, we're not starving the body. Let's get that out. It's an anabolic program. That's why we have so many athletes on the program. But you can see, and by the way, this study was published in Journal of Nutrition and Metabolism. It's a very well-respected journal, so you can look these up. We have a lot of studies in the research. PubMed, they're in it as well. We can see the reduction of visceral fat on MRI. That's crazy. And this person, or these studies, these subjects, this is what happened. They weren't put up against people eating McDonald's. This is what happened. They were put up against a control group that was eating healthy. So the control group was on the heart healthy diet. How cool is that? We're able to show that we can reduce visceral fat by twice the amount compared to people just eating healthy. So eating healthy is great, but you need to supplement. You need to be on a program that can do those things that I just talked about. This is why we can prove that, Mrs. Jones, it's great that you eat healthy and you're organic and you do yoga 7 days a week, but here's what we can show. Your body needs help. We're not living back in the 1700s anymore. Our food is not the same. And, I mean, look at that, 56% more weight loss, 47% more fat loss, but twice the visceral fat loss. Is that important with your diabetic patients? Absolutely. Here's some more science that's been published. We can show that athletes lose muscle, that athletes I apologize, lose weight, gain muscle, increase their strength. In fact, down here, I don't know if you can see my cursor. I want you to see something which came out of this. Check this out. The Skidmore College Performance Study showed that these subjects had 5 times less arterial stiffness. Can our program help with cardiovascular markers? Absolutely. That's why this is the staple program in my neuropathy program, my degenerative disc program, my Get Well program, my healthy program. Um, and again, if your program does that, keep doing it. This is just what I can show. I'm based on science in labs and physiology. But I get excited about this because we can take athletes and make them better. It's very easy to screw up an athlete. I tell people, you want to test a program, test it against an athlete, because you can screw athletes up very easily, and it's very hard to make them better. So what we've found is that the Colgan Institute actually did this study, because when you say cleansing to an athlete, they run the other way. You say intermittent fasting, they run the other way. Why do we work with so many athletes? Because we can prove that they can actually gain muscle and burn fat. So they took these men and women, both under 10% body fat, at the Colgan Institute. This was done a few years ago. And by the way, look up Michael Colgan. He's one of the most renowned research scientists out there on on protein and what protein does. Protein as an anabolic source, protein in degeneration, protein in disease. He's one of the leading authorities on protein. Look him up, Dr. Michael Colgan. They did this study specifically, and they had these triathletes that were under 10% body fat. Okay, and they put them on the 30-day program, and what they found was incredible. They continued to lose an average of 4.2 pounds. They're already under 10% body weight. Now, when you say that to someone, they say, "Oh, that's dangerous to lose that," especially an athlete that's already got a chisel chest. No, they're not losing good fat. They're not losing muscle. They're losing bad fat. We talk about skinny fat on MRIs. Some of these athletes actually we can see out there, and you have them. Some of you I know are not in your heads. You have athletes that have high visceral fat because of the supplementation they've been on, maybe, or unhealthy they are. Just because they look a certain way doesn't mean they're healthy. We all know that. We were able to decrease their body fat by 3%, but check this out. These athletes that are already ripped up gained 2.8%, almost 3% more lean muscle by doing this nutritional cleansing intermittent fasting program. That is crazy and unheard of. That's why this is anabolic. My dad is 84 years old. He has more lean muscle on him than he's had in a long, long time. That's crazy. So here's what else I'm passionate about. And here's what I want you to do. If you're using a program, if you have a functional medicine department, if you have a neuropathy department, if you're a subluxation-based chiropractor, whatever you do for your patients and you use nutrition, I want you to make sure that the nutrition company you use ask them. There's several questions, and I want to empower you to do this. The company that I use does raw material identification. They DNA fingerprint every raw material that comes into them. So if you're using a company, good company, and there's several good companies out there, they're not all bad. There's several companies out there. Mine isn't the only one that I like, and again, I use about 3 or 4 different companies. They actually they get the ingredients with a certificate of authenticity, meaning this has been sourced from a credible source, and it's kind of like a birth certificate for people. It's a certificate of authenticity for raw ingredients. Even the raw food that comes in with these certificates, the company tests all of the ingredients, and what they find is they're still not all pure. There's a percentage that come in with heavy metals, toxicities, and pesticides in them. I don't know if you know this or not, but Whole Foods, where I like to get some of my food, organic food, they don't test the organic food out there, right? Most companies don't. It's very expensive. What I put in my body, in my kid's body, I know is pure. So I used to think I ate clean. I didn't need supplementation. It's not true, right? I still want to eat clean, but this is eating clean because there's no contaminants in the nutrition that I give my patients, right? Testing for potency and purity, very important. Find out what companies do to test for potency, purity, and safety. They should give you the regulations. You'd be very surprised too. There are some companies with big names. They don't supply you with much information. Why? I'll let you decide on that. I want to know what I'm putting in my kids' mouths. I want to know what I'm putting in my mouth. And certainly when patients come to me as an authority to give them, unadulterated, pure supplementation, I want to know what I'm giving them. How do they test for cleanliness? Okay, in packaging and handling, do you know what happens with the microbials and the bacteria just from handling these products before it even gets to your clinic or gets into your house? right? They sit in a warehouse somewhere. There's got to be protocols for that. Finished product testing. I know some of these companies, they send it out to 14 to 17 universities. Every single batch is tested before, during, and after. That's the level that I like. Clinical testing at universities, again, that we talked about. So what I can tell you is, and I know we're short on time, I know we want to keep it so we can answer questions here. We are not processing. Okay, a lot of people. I had a doctor. She recommended that my patient stop using the program because she said, "Oh, there's too much sugar in the program." So I said, "Okay, and I called the doctor up and I said, "I'm just curious. I want to understand. I really want to co-treat this patient with you. I respect you. I respect your work. In fact, we've co-treated before. But when you say too much sugar, I got to understand that." So she said, "Yeah. I looked at the box and it looks like too much sugar." And I said, "Do you know that the sugar in this program is from pears, beets, and berries? It's from natural sources. It's not synthetic sugar, and it's the same amount of sugar as half an apple. Is that an issue? Because if you don't want your patient to even have that, we can certainly talk." And she said, "No, I didn't realize it." And she now endorses what I do. So it's the first glimpse. So when you talk to practitioners, again, if you don't use this program, I'm fine with that. If you have a program that you believe in, but don't let your patients just listen to one source because they say, "Oh, we don't like that, it's got sugar in it," or "I want you to use this protein." Have those those conversations, from a non-biased standpoint, understand and go into it with, listen, I really want to hear you, and not with any agenda other than just educating. And if they're still hell bent on not, then that's your decision on how you deal with it. But I see some really good programs out there that people are, we had another OBG that we dealt with. She had an interest with her patient going on everything from her clinic. I use a few different companies for a few different sources. If someone needs extra adrenals, I'll use a particular company. If you need extra thyroid, I use a different company. For a nutritional cleansing system, I use a certain company because I can prove I'm satisfied with that, and you should be too. That's the whole point. So this was toxicity, deficiency, obesity, and stress. This is really why I think we are getting sicker and sicker. You and I have the power. We have the power to help our patients be better, do better, not to convince them, not to make them do something. But when Mrs. Jones sits across from your desk, she's there because she needs help. And when she says, "Oh, no, I'm going to continue on my program. I've done it 14 times, XYZ program, weight loss program, whatever it is," you say, "Mrs. Jones, can I be candid with you? If it worked, you wouldn't need to do it 14 times. This is a program that works with your life. Maintenance is easy. It's simple. And if you're serious about getting better, this is what you need to do. Otherwise, I'm not really sure why you're here." Right? So when people fight you, I just believe in being honest and straightforward. I can help you, but you got to be at 8, 9, or a 10 on the commitment level, and you have to take this seriously. If you're telling me that you can't get off the couch and you can't play with your kids anymore because your knees are killing you and you're overweight, it's either, "Brian, we either do something now or we don't. I'm not sure what else I can do to help you, but if you want my help, this program works, and I'd be happy to tell you about it if you're open." So, Mark, I am going to stop there because I know you wanted to leave it open for questions. I hope I didn't go too fast. I really wanted to get the points across, and I go, depending on my audience, I really focus in on where they want to focus. Either it's a science or patient based. I do these programs for patients as well. I help educate patients. So we kind of boogied on through so we get to these questions if you have any.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much, Dr. Dunsky. This was a wonderful presentation, certainly packed with information. So we can't say that we didn't learn something today for sure. Couple points. Obviously, Dr. Dunsky has a program that he has developed and utilizes in his practice, and I'm sure he would be happy to discuss that further with you. His contact information is on the screen right now. As a top education webinar, we are not specifically endorsing any particular company or program, but certainly endorse an intelligent presentation and an intelligent practitioner like Dr. Dunsky. So with that being said, I do have one question here that's asking if you might comment on veganism or vegetarianism. Is that something that you feel is a good, bad, or totally indifferent thing too?
Great question. I get this a lot, actually. The majority of people that I see, not all, because there's some real healthy vegans out there. So let me just say, this is not a blanket statement, but the majority that I see, the majority that I come in contact with over my travels and meetings and whatnot, it's hard to get all of the nutrition just from our food. And so yes, you can be healthy. So to answer your question, yes, you can be healthy as a vegan. In fact, my 19-year-old, oddly enough, is a vegan, and he chose to stand it. We dabbled in it for 3 months last year, and we loved it, but we didn't stay on it on purpose. But he stayed there, and he's getting his nutrition from the supplements that we give him. So you can be healthy, but I caution you, if someone is a vegetarian or vegan and they think they're getting it all from the nutrition, it's very difficult to. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I really think that people should watch their labs because you can get pretty sick over time if your body's not getting the right nutrition. We do have a program for vegans and vegetarians, and there's some very good ones out there from some different companies too. So yes, you can do it. You've got to be mindful though of getting all of your nutrition, especially your trace minerals, if you're going to go that route. If I could just caution, I was very surprised with some companies that couldn't bring to the table what I thought they had based on just exposure. And so that's why I empower people to really ask questions. As far as the nutritional rebalancing program, the metabolic cleanse, I love Isogenics for it. And I know there's some other good ones out there, but that's my go-to for that aspect.
Oh, that's great. You had mentioned that you do blood work. Is this a standard panel? Do you have specialty tests that you'd like to order? What kind of blood tests do you order?
Yes, so we do. I have, if patients come in, a lot of them will already come in with full CBCs. They'll come in with full counts. They have hormones. If not, I'll send out for them. I use Great Plains for some testing. I use some from Alcat Labs, some from Hemocode. I will do IgG testing when we need to. We'll have, again, adrenals, thyroid. We'll have a whole workup. Depends. Every case is different. For the majority, though, I'll tell you, Mark, for the majority, I've actually, testing can get expensive. I've been able to eliminate probably 80% of the testing that I do because of the type of nutritional rebalancing that we do. I'm going to put most people on that anyways. But if I still don't like what's showing up in the blood down the road, we'll say, okay, now we need to do an IgG because I don't believe I believe something else is going on. Sometimes we'll do a heavy metal testing, hair testing. But it's not, I don't do the amount of testing that I used to do. Now, if someone walks in and they're very, very sick, I sometimes I won't even touch them until we do a bunch of labs. That's a no-brainer. So the system that I use is a blood sugar regulation system. It's a cardiovascular detox. It's an anti-inflammatory program, low glycemic. It's an alkalining program. It helps to increase catalase in all the cells. So it's a full molecular cleansing system, Mark. And I think that's 90 or 80 or 90% of the program, I got to believe, is from lack of nutrition, just because we see sometimes that's all we do. So that's the type of testing I do from some really good labs out there, good companies. And, if anybody wants more information on how I kind of pick and choose, I'm happy to chat with them. They can reach out to me. I'm happy to elaborate.
Oh, thank you. Great. One other quick question. It looks here. It says, obviously people are dealing with who want things to be done in a as quick as possible. Well, how fast do you normally see results?
With the nutritional cleansing system?
Correct. Yes.
Oh boy, I'll tell you. I would say most people in 3 to 4 days, they notice something's happening. And usually, I'll tell you, Mark, it's the four things with my patients over 40. So yes, people come in for weight loss, right? I do know, by the way, up to now, I do no weight loss advertising at all. But we have a ton of people because people know people that got results. They might have come in for back pain, but the 40 pounds is gone and they're healthy and they weren't starving themselves. So I have people that do come in for weight loss and do come in for other issues too, GI issues. But I will tell you that most people will feel something different 3 to 4 days. The four things that happen the quickest: sleep, and this is what they report to us before we even ask how they're doing: sleep, energy, mommy brain or daddy brain, and all of you can relate to that. When you have kids or you're working, you're stressed, your concentration's not there, your focus, and then libido. Those four things, Mark, from getting people healthy and infusing the right nutrition, their body starts to change. And some people, Mark, that are really sick, they might not see results until week 4 or 5. So I give people, and I think it's very important as a practitioner, give your client, your patients, realistic expectations. Mrs. Jones, you very well could feel good in 4 or 5 days. It may be a week, but it also could take you longer. You've been dealing with this for years. Some people are on a 3-month journey, but I'm going to be here to test you along the way, and I'm going to do this with you, and we're going to get you to your goal However, it could be a process, but most people feel difference in a short period of time.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we want to thank you very much for your time and certainly your expertise in this material. Remember, privileged members, you can go probably within the next few hours. I will have this downloaded onto the website if you wanted to review any of the slides and materials that Dr. Dunsky has presented. It is his proprietary information, so we will not be offering the PowerPoint, but you obviously can be in touch with him directly. So I would like to thank you, Dr. Dunsky, for taking the time and giving this presentation to us, and we'll certainly have you back in the future. And thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Davini. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.